lives in Myrtle Beach, very close to the center. And we are very happy to have him join us tonight and to listen to his wonderful Coming to Baba story. So take it away, Kevin.
Go ahead.
Well,
Do you want me to share the email or like you want someone to read or no?
Sure, yes, we can do that. Yeah, why don't we do that?
well, first of all, thank you for that introduction. It's always,
Sure.
I guess
Should
it's
we start? With,
you're in a privilege.
we'll start with reading your bio that you sent, and then you can take it from there. How's that?
Okie
Okay. Okay, Jaisima. Okay. Okay. So I'll go ahead and read it. Dear folks of Baba, tonight we have as our guest Kevin Connor, who will share his story of coming to Baba. He has written this brief biography of his life in advance of our session. My spiritual journey began in 1987 in New York when I first encountered Meher Baba's name and image while attending a 3-day training course. Immediately after that, I bought and began reading Meher Baba's Discourses and was immediately gripped by his stunning truth that resonated in my heart and mind. However, I was deeply convinced of the divinity of Christ, so I was not prepared to accept Baba's claim to be Christ come again. So I appealed to Baba and put the burden on him to lead me to a person that could have such authority and real life experience that would help me see, experience, and accept. That search continued for almost 3 years until Meher Baba turned the key in me at the Meher Baba Spiritual Center in Myrtle Beach on my second visit there. I will share that experience tonight. During my first pilgrimage to Meher Baba's tomb, I met my first wife who had been born into a family of Baba lovers. Our 20-year marriage brought us 3 sons, Narayan, Jalal, and Francis, named after Narayan Maharaj, Jalaluddin Rumi, and Saint Francis of Assisi. Each boy has found their own connection to Baba and lives with conviction and love for Baba as the avatar of the age. My life has been enriched by countless daily experiences with Baba over the past 34 years. By Baba's unfathomable grace, he has allowed me to live 3 miles away from the entrance to his center in Myrtle Beach for the last 23 years. Hardly a day goes by that I do not visit the center, and Baba's grace has extended to giving me the privilege of volunteering at his center, including overnight watchman duties. So, looking forward to your story, Kevin. Take it away.
Well, that about wraps it up. I'm done.
No, we need to hear all the lovely details.
Oh, well, first of all, what a privilege to be here and the opportunity to take a swing at telling my story about how Baba has loved me in spite of myself. It reminds me of the words of Erich's prayer, who he says, I remain beholden to you for everything that you've done for me. In spite of what I am and how I am, you have always showered your love and grace upon me. And so it is the way I feel. So I grew up in a lower middle class home in New York, a crazy home, raging Irish alcoholic father and 2 brothers, and it was rough going during those days. And grew up as a Catholic, and in a Catholic church area. I went to public school. I didn't go to Catholic school, and so it was the habit during that time, if you were in the New York City public school and you were a Catholic, that you'd have half a day on Wednesday where you go to religious instructions, which amounted to going to a classroom with your fellow Catholic students to the Catholic school nearby, and you would learn about the Bible and Catholicism and such. And it so happened that at a very young age. I think I was maybe 8 or 9 years old, or 10. My two younger brothers and I were watching Saturday morning cartoons, and an advertisement came on and said, "Call this number, call 1-800-123-BIBLE," or something like that, and get a free Bible. So myself and my two mischievous brothers, let's call the number. And so I did, ring, 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 back when it was rotary phones. And it's like, they asked me who I was and what my address was, which I promptly gave them and completely forgot about it. Well, sometime thereafter, the doorbell rings at our house, and we lived in a 2-story little skinny house in College Point, Queens. And a man arrived at the door. His name was Dimitri. And he said, "Hi, I'm here to see Kevin Connor to deliver his free Bible." My mother at the time, whose name was Patricia, and just side note, my mom's name is Patricia, born on St. Patrick's Day. Anyways, she said, "Oh, you mean John Connor?" And he looks at his paper. He says, "No, I mean Kevin Connor. I'm here to deliver his free Bible." He had called in for it. And she screamed, "Kevin!" And I ran to the door, and there I was. And my mother, in an interesting moment, she just looked at me. She said, "Well, I mean," she looks at the fellow, lovely, big, 6'2" Greek construction builder, was a Seventh-day Adventist. And her only question was, "Well, what version of the Bible is it?" He says, "King James." And she looked at me. And then the man said, "Well, also, I'd be more than happy to come every other week and give Kevin here Bible lessons if he wants them." My mother had looked at me and said, "Do you want them?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And it so happened that this guy did, wonderful, beautiful, heartful fellow, would come. I'd get an assignment with a little pamphlet with some readings, passages, and verses in the Bible that I would have to read. And then there's a couple of lines where I'd answer some sort of a question. And I rather enjoyed it. And it was good until I was going to my Catholic training. Religious instruction is what they called it, on Wednesdays in New York at the Catholic school, being released from public school on that day. And it was taught by nuns. And I would say, Sister, how come it says in the Bible that you shall have no images before me? And we have all these statues in the church." And she, the sister would reply, "Where did you read that?" And I'm like, "Well, yes, chapter and verse such and such, Romans 14." But I guess the kiss of death was, I was like, Sister, how come you say there's a hell when there's no hell yet?" And and she's like, What are you saying? Of course there's hell. I go, "No, in Revelations, blah, blah, blah." And so their response to that behavior was to have the chief priest, Father Nifsi of our little diocese there, our parish, call my mother, who was a God-fearing Catholic. I mean, fire and brimstone, God-fearing Catholic. And the Father Nifsi called my mother and said to her, "I believe you need to reevaluate your son's religious training." And my mother promptly dismissed Mr. Dimitri, who again was, he was just your classic brute of a man who had the warmest, sweetest heart. He was a wonderful, absolutely. The most poignant moment of my time with Mr. Dimitri was he taught me how to pray, not prayers per se, the Our Father and the Hail Mary and such. He explained to me, when you pray to God, all you do is first thing you do is you thank God for everything that he has given you. And then if you've done anything wrong, bad, just ask God to forgive you. And then if you know people that need help or someone that's in trouble and such, then you can ask God to help those people. And then he said, and if you're still talking to God, then you can ask for something for yourself. So that stuck with me my whole life. Anyways, but my response to that, by this time I was 12, I know that because that was the year I jumped out of a tree and broke, dislocated, fracture, and chipped my elbow. My mother said, "That's it. Thank you very much, Dimitri, but this is in conflict with Kevin's Catholicism." And I promptly decided then, at that moment, because I was very unhappy and sad that Mr. Dimitri was gone, that there was no God. I became a I don't know what the phrase is, but a passionate atheist, and I asserted that nobody could agree on anything, and if all adults couldn't agree on who God was and what the story was and what he said, it was all a bunch of hooey and nonsense, and that's it. There is no God, and I continued that way intensely, and I would happily argue with you for the fun of it. Until in freshman year in college, I was hanging out with my girlfriend at the time, Michelle Miller, at the State University of Albany. Unbeknownst to me, that Darwin was just right down the street in Schenectady. At that time, I knew nothing, I never even heard Baba's name. And we happened to stay up one night, all night, and somewhere around the break of dawn, it occurred to me, it was a gift. All of a sudden, I just became aware of the fact that, well, my goodness, if we're even talking right now, of course there must be God. And in that moment, I had this profound spiritual experience where I knew that Christ was God. I could feel it deep in my heart that Christ was God. And it seemed like all of the teachings that I had read in the Bible became, the best word I could describe it is alive. Like the words were living words. One of the phrases in the Old Testament is, he goes before me to make the crooked way straight. And for a period of time of weeks, it was as if I could visually see a path, my life path unfolding, like right in front of my eyes. And so this was a beautiful and deep experience, which thereafter I went from being an atheist to the other end of the spectrum. And I was I was one of those guys. By this time, of course, I'm a freshman in college. I'm just at 18th, and I'm one of those very annoying people who would walk up to you and say, "Hey, have you heard the good news?" Proselytizing like crazy. So this goes on for some period of time, and as a consequence of my search and passion, I began, and some trainings that I had done, I began to have some regular inner spiritual experience, or at least, as Baba would describe, minor occult experience, very expansive light and states of ecstasy. And it also led to me having some degree of control over that, meaning that I could bring about states of consciousness for myself. No drugs, just a inner practice, more or less on demand. And so by this time, I had the deep conviction that Christ was God, but I also developed the same conviction that led to me being for a period of time an atheist, that like I'd never met a human being who had any good reason beyond my own personal experience to say with absolute conviction that they knew who God was. And so that was just the way it was. And so when people would go on because of their whatever beautiful experience they might have that led them to the absolute conviction that they knew who God was, I would listen kindly, but really not take anybody seriously. So that's the backdrop. So life went on, la-di-da, la-di-da, la-di-da. I'm working in the Wall Street area in 1987, and I have a dear friend who is a world famous baritone saxophone player, jazz saxophone player. Her name is Claire Daly. And we hung out all the time. And I used to go to her gigs down in the village and everywhere else. And she was cool and I was cool. And that was what it was. I was living in New York. And so anyways, one day she tells me that she's going to do this transformational course. It's a 3-day course, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's called Direct Centering. And who knows, there might be someone on the call tonight who knew of Bayard, at the time, Bayard Hora and direct centering in New York. But it so happens that it was like an est, I'm sure a lot of you know what est is. It was like est on steroids. So and the advertisement for the course was, during the 3-day course, your reality will shatter like a pane of glass hitting the pavement. And the second marketing slogan was that during the 3-day course, you will experience your unlimitedness. And I was absolutely certain that was horse hockey. I was like, come on, another marketing pitch, Meanwhile, and so was my attitude, along with Claire, who was, she was just hip, cool chick, traveling the world, playing baritone jazz with some of the great jazz players of our time. And so I'm 27 at the time, and she tells me, and she says, hey, I'm going to do this course. You want to go? And I'm like, Claire, you're kidding me, right? You're not taking that stuff seriously. And she says, no, I'm going to do it. I'm like, oh, cool. Well, tell me what it's like. So on the Monday following her completing the 3-day course, I speak to her on the phone and I ask one simple question. I say, Claire, was there even so much as a moment when you experienced your unlimitedness? And she said, yes, as a matter of fact, I did. But because of the deep trust I had for her, all she had to do was say that, yes. And I said, okay, I'll do the course. So that was I began the course in the latter part of November 1987. And it wasn't an exaggeration. I really kind of had my mind blown repeatedly. And from a relative standpoint, having had so many inner experiences, it was considerably more expensive, or definitely more self-effacing than anything I had experienced before. And on the last night, which was Sunday night, the teacher does what can only be described as an exit interview. That is, farewell to the students that participated that weekend, which we numbered, I guess, 30 or 40 students that time. And he said, and this is word for word verbatim, Bayard, the guy who created the course, Bayard discovered direct centering, which was what the course was all on. Bayard discovered direct centering when he read the words of his master, Avatar Meher Baba, who said, the root cause of all suffering is wanting or not wanting in one form or another. Upon reading those words, Bayard began laughing uncontrollably for a number of days. And that was that. It turns out I didn't know that in the course room, which was in the lower east side of Manhattan, a big loft area, there was this, fairly enormous photograph of Baba there the whole entire time. It was hung up on the wall. I hadn't noticed it at all. I'd never heard Meher Baba's name prior to that moment, but I just remember those exact words. But I have to remind you that my receptivity to hearing this news was I was going to say in the wake, but in the very moment of me having the most expanded consciousness that I had ever experienced. And this was quite something. And he said, and again, he quotes, Bayard discovered direct centering when he read the words of his master, Avatar Meher Baba, who said that the root cause of all suffering was wanting or not wanting in one form or another. And the link between that and what I had just experienced for 3 days was, there was the teacher, and there were like a 1-to-1 ratio of assistants who'd walk up to you for 3 days and go, what are you wanting? And you'd say what you were wanting, and they'd say, let go and tell me when you did that. And try letting go on purpose, a couple hundred times in a row over the course of a couple of days. And I imagine most people's mind will be blown. But what happened from that was the absolute, I experienced in such a deep core part of my being that it was true. That any suffering I ever had was because I was either wanting something or not wanting something. So immediately following that, now I'll add to this that in addition to believing that Christ was God, based on that experience I had in freshman year. I also had been introduced to the ideas of Gurdjieff, who was a Russian six-plane saint. Bao confirmed that he was indeed on the sixth plane. So I had those ideas circulating in my mind, and really had gripped me. And so that was my state. But I immediately went to Weiser's book in the pouring rain in my government auction Ford station wagon, and got a copy of Discourses, the compiled version. Now, it turned out that before that moment, my girlfriend at the time had a copy of the first volume in the 3-volume set, the blue cover. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that. And I opened it up, and on the very first right side facing page is the 7 realities, which ends on the page on the back. And I, right after the course, I found that, and I read the 7 realities, and had this instantaneous, very unpleasant feeling, which was, oh my God, I knew it was the truth. And I literally closed the book and I said, I'm not ready for that. I'm not prepared. I'm not ready for that. And then a week thereafter, I guess, I went to Weiser's book and I got the big volume. So for those of you who have that book, you know that Baba's photograph on the front cover is, well, it's just beautiful. Baba's stunningly beautiful. But when you open up that book, on the inside left cover, there's this beautiful full-page photograph of Mayor Baba, and he's smiling. So I'm sitting in the Ford station wagon in the pouring rain. I just got my hands on the book and bought it. I'm sitting in the front seat, the driver's seat, and I open up the book and I look at Baba's photo. And the only way I can describe it to you is that from the center of I'm pointing to my stomach right now, right where you're like, right above your belly, your solar plexus, all of a sudden, like these bubbles of laughter, uncontrollable bubbles, like gentle bubbles of laughter came up, so that I just began to, I wouldn't say laugh, but like giggle. I was just like happy, giggly, bubbly feelings. And I was shocked. So I slammed the book closed and composed myself, calmed myself down, basically. And I said, okay, I'm calm. Let me begin the experiment again. And so I opened up the book, and the moment that I saw Baba's face from within, like, in other words, this laughter was coming from some deep place in the middle of my gut. I've come to find out many, many, many years thereafter from a Sandhyar that, that's really the location of, the dil in Farsi. Dil is the heart, but not the physical location of the heart. But anyway, so that happened, and so there I was, and I was essentially stuck because I didn't have an urge to dispute the claim of Baba being the ancient one come again. And I had it was easy for me to logically understand that the Messiah, the Avatar, comes again and again and again. That made sense to me, Zoroastrian, Krishna, Ram, Buddha, Christ, Muhammad, and here he comes again. And I figured, well, Christ's coming twice, right? So he came once, he's going to come again. Why not? But I had no conviction. I just had a willingness to not argue the point. So then I said to Baba, Baba, look, I can't believe in you just because someone says so or because I read this. And as you know, I've had all these inner experiences. And as you know, I love dear Christ. But if you want to help me, and if you are, my dear Christ, come again, I'm sure you can send me. There's got to be one person on the planet who, when they say, I know that you, Avatar Mayor Baba, that you are God, that at the very least, they'll be able to recount experiences that they've had that convinced me that they've had, I don't think I was arrogant at the time, but I certainly did have the ability to call on altered states of consciousness on command by simply going inside myself, et cetera, et cetera. So I was looking for this person, and I put it on Baba. I go, Baba, there must be somebody. So like I was kind of saying to Baba, it's like not that big a deal. I mean, there's got to be people that know more than I do. Just send me one. Like lead me to one of them. And that was that. And that was probably 1989. I moved to Raleigh for business. And of course, I found out that the Baba Center existed. I didn't talk to anyone who was a Baba lover. I didn't know a single Baba lover at all. I had the Discourses is what I had. I got married, very brief marriage. I'm in denial that I was ever married in that case. It's like a year, to a wild Romanian woman. To the story of that. But so there we were, and we were in Raleigh, and I go, we got to go to the Baba Center. So she was from communist Romania and had quite this story, and she was very adamantly opposed to the idea of a master whatsoever. So that's her, and then there's me, and I'm determined to go to this center, this Meher Baba Center, and I'm on a search to find somebody who can tell me, they met Baba or they knew. I'm on the search for Baba fulfilling my request to put me in the company of someone who could give me certainty that they had conviction based on real personal experience. So there we go. We get to the center, and it turned out that my wife at the time, it was her time of the month, and so she was really out of sorts and such, and we were staying in the which cabins with the doesn't matter. We had a room, and so we just split up. She was laying in bed, and I said, well, listen, I'm going to go, talk to people if I can. Now, mind you, I know nothing. I'm like about as newbie as they come. And I wander into the original kitchen, and there's a couple of people sitting at a round table. I sit down, and I introduce myself. And there's a man sitting at the table, and I just start, asking questions. He says, hey, is this your first visit? Yes, it is, blah, blah, blah. And I begin to recount, how I wound up there, much the same way I'm telling you here. And I'm going on about the ideas of Gurdjieff, and my interpretation of the teachings of Gurdjieff. One creates one's soul through objective awareness, blah, blah, blah. And the guy says to me, I have a really dear friend, and he also lives in Raleigh. And he was a very, very serious student of Gurdjieff, and he loves Baba now. You should call him. His name is Michael Kovitz. And so what I didn't know at the moment there was that I was speaking to Lynn Ott. And so I spent that whole morning talking to, well, a couple hours really, speaking to Lynn Ott, oblivious to who Lynn Ott was. And then I ran into Richie Bloom, who just in his loving way kind of took me under his wing. And Kitty, so this is like either what, 90, 91. I think Kitty had just turned 100, was getting ready to turn 100. And he went out of the way to make sure that at the meeting place, I was introduced to Kitty. Once again, I mean, it's embarrassing to say it now, but I was, hey, hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. I just didn't know who I was with. And so that's it. Now, mind you, during this weekend, I barely saw my wife at the time. Her name is Christina. And I didn't know what she was doing, who she was talking to. She stayed in there. I mean, I would show up and, go to sleep. And she was kind of in a bad mood. So I asked, what'd you do? She didn't say it. I didn't know what she'd done for the time that we were there. But remember, she was aggressively, adamantly opposed to any notion of a master. So it's Monday morning, and I'm driving her to work. She was working at Belk, as it turned out. And so it's the first moment, really, that we're talking to each other, because the drive back, she was out cold. And I said, I enjoyed my time there, and I talked to this guy, and I'm really beginning to think that, Meher Baba might And she just cuts me off. She's Romanian, very fiery. She goes, "What's wrong with you?" I go, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "Mayor Baba is God. He's my master." I'm like, "What happened to you?" Right? So there it is. But lo and behold, I took the suggestion of Lynn Ott, and I just called back in the day, right? You dial 411. Hi, can I get the phone number of Michael Kovitz in Raleigh? And I called up and I said, "Hello, my name is Kevin Connor. I met Lynn Ott, and he suggested that I give you a holler because, I kind of been wrapped up in the ideas of your chief, and he said that you were a serious student." And he turned, he's one of my best friends in life now. So 35, 40 years, whatever, 35 years later. And I remember that he told me the story of the murderer who went to the perfect master, having killed 99 men. And there came the messenger with the message to execute 100 innocent men. And he was right from the get-go explaining to me the nature of the perfect master and the avatar. And he recounts to me sometime thereafter, because we became close friends, that during that first phone call, stranger calling out of the blue, he told me that I must go to the tomb. And he tells me that although he has told folks, suggested that they go to the tomb, never, ever in his many decades with Mayor Baba did he, upon first conversation with somebody, tell him you got to go to the tomb. Because it turns out his story was that, yes, in fact, he was really an advanced, I would say, aspirant, with the work of Gurdjieff. And he went to the tomb nilly-willy with his girlfriend, happily resolved on his own spiritual path, but accommodating his girlfriend at the time. And he hit the tomb and he said, "That's it." Because I remember we used to get together for Indian buffet every Sunday. And he's one of the most well-read Babalas I've ever met. And I would riddle him with questions. He's also read all of Upasni Maharaj's. And so I could ask him questions. And it was fun, and one night we were just eating at the buffet. No, we were eating sushi. It was evening time. And he looks at me and goes, "Look, I was a serious student, very, very serious student of that, a true, like a really spiritual aspirant. And all I can tell you is I can't answer any more questions. Baba will turn the key for you or he won't. That's it. That's all there is." We went on to be friends and such. By the way, in the case of my ex-wife there, who I was married to for a year, unbeknownst to me, the entire time that we were not together and I was hanging out with Lynn Ott, guess who Baba sent to her? Phyllis Ott. And she and Phyllis became the best of friends over decades. Okay, so now I'm divorced. I mean, literally, we were married for 1 year period. And I go back to the center, and this is 91 or late 90, whatever. And I get put in the Hermitage. And I drive to the center from Raleigh. I had a motorcycle at the time. I motorcycled my way there, and I'm in the Hermitage. And so I'm like the most engaged Baba liker or lover that doesn't believe that Baba's God yet, but I'm like all about Baba. But I am not, what can I say? I go to sleep on the night before I had to leave. I spent a weekend, and Baba literally came to me twice in my dreams, one right after the other in succession in the earliest part of the morning before daybreak. In the first dream, Baba and I and Mandali are on what I can only describe as a single mast circa 600 AD, large, maybe 60 or 70-foot hand-hewn wooden boat. And on the deck, there's a massive pile of 50-pound burlap bags filled with grain. And I don't know if it was rice or something. And Baba is just sprawled out on this pile of these bags of grain. It's just sitting there laying on the bags of grain. And he motions to me, "Go down below. deck and give this message to Mara. We all know, you're not supposed, no man is supposed to talk to Mara. So it's just as you would imagine. There's like 2 or 3 or 4 steps down below, and it's more or less pitch black, except for a couple of kerosene lanterns. And there's this tiny little door, and Mara's sitting with a lantern there, and at this tiny little desk with her back to the door. But Erich is standing there facing outward. And the moment that I hit the area of the door and I say the words out loud, Mara, Baba, he starts screaming at me. I mean, he's like, don't you know? You're not allowed. Get out of here, man. You can't be next. You can't talk to me. I mean, he's scolding me. And Mara just quietly, Mara doesn't say a word. Again, her back is still to me. I'm only looking at the back of her head. And she just raises her hand ever so quietly like this to calm down Erich. And she says, okay, and turns to me, says, oh, what did Baba say? And I don't know what the message was. I just remember I said, blah, blah, blah. And she said, that's very good. She's so sweet and happy. And I go back up on deck. And Baba's still laying out on the burlap bags. And he motions to me, son, what happened? I said, oh, Baba, I went down there, and then Erich started yelling at me. And at the moment I begin to tell the part where Erich is yelling at me, Baba starts laughing. He's like this. I immediately realized that he did it on purpose. He totally set me up. And of course, I realized then, he's like, tell me again. So I now realize I'm supposed to fully embellish this story to Baba because he's loving it. Like he wanted me to get yelled at. So I'm like, Baba, you wouldn't believe it. And I'm like, Erich's face was bright red. And then he asked me, then what'd Mara do? And I showed, she's just put her hand up. And Bob was like, oh, so happy. And that's it. The dream is over. I don't know how many minutes in the dream state thereafter. The next thing I'm at Delmonico's. I'm in the dining hall, and Bob is sitting. So as in the dream, the ballroom, and it's all these rounds with 8 people, 6, 7, 8 people sitting at all of them, filled with people. And there's a table 2 tables over, and there's Baba. He's sitting at the table. And there's an empty seat next to him. And there's 2 guys, just sitting on my left and right shoulder at the table that I'm at, which is filled. And I don't know who they are. And I just say, do you guys know? I mean, is anybody sitting next to Baba? And they go, I don't know. And turn to the other guy and goes, there's an empty seat next to Baba. It's like, somebody, is that somebody's seat? And he goes, I don't know. I go, I'm going over there. So I go over and I sit down next to Baba. And the moment I sit down next to Baba, if you ever seen the 3 Incredible Weeks movie where Baba, one of the Western lovers, is walking up to him, Baba just whacks him on the back like that. Baba does that. He whacks me on the back. And then he starts talking to me. I mean, he's not speaking. I just know that he's communicating with me, like as if it's something important. And I'm like, yes, Baba, yes, Baba. I don't know what he's saying per se at all. And then he reaches under the table and he pulls out this, black book with nothing on the cover. It's just like a hardbound black book. And he hands it to me. And he's like cheerful at the time. He's like, and he hands it to me. He goes, this is your book. And he whacked me on the back again, which I clearly knew it was time to, leave the table. And at that moment, I woke up. And I tell you, not a moment since that moment then I ever looked back. I just knew that Baba, lock, stock, and barrel, was God himself, and that I could talk to him and he would talk to me. And so it has been more or less every day since that day. So that was 91. Yeah, that was 91, because I wound up running a presidential campaign in 1992 as a national deputy campaign manager for Governor Jerry Brown's bid. Came close, but Clinton won. And I'd still try to make my way to the tomb. This isn't my single-pointed mission now. But mind you, however Baba orchestrated this most beautiful romance for me, I still, with the exception of talking to Michael Kovitz and my one, sort of 2-day sojourn at the center talking to Lynn Ott, who I did like sort of immediately uh, uh, come to know because Michael Kovitz told me who Lynn Ott was. I'm like, oh, really? And so I had a business at the time and I'm trying to figure out how to get to India, et cetera, et cetera. But I have never gone to a Baba meeting. I don't really know any of the Baba lovers. I don't know anything other than Mayor Baba is God, and I know one Baba lover for sure. He's my buddy, and we have Indian buffet. So I organized so that Baba organizes so I can leave for a month, and this is I make my very first trip to the Samadhi November 1993. But prior to this moment, I learned because I'm in California now, I'm in Los Angeles, that I didn't go to a single Baba meeting in LA, but somehow I come to find out that one of Meher Baba's disciples is going to be in California. And his name is something Bao something. All I know is he's known to be a disciple who met Meher and spent a good portion of his life with Meher Baba. I'm like, oh my God, this is it, man. This is what I've been dreaming of. And so I don't really know the protocol or anything of these things, but if it's God's disciple, Bao was speaking at Occidental College in Los Angeles, and so I put on a suit and a tie. I mean, I put on my Sunday best, I promise you. And I show up, and there's at least 100 people there, I guess, in the auditorium where he was going to be speaking, and well, let's just face it, we're all Bible lovers here. I did stick out like a sore thumb, like no one's ever seen me before. I come in looking like an FBI agent, and so it so happened that Glenn Russ, I don't know if any of you know Glenn Russ. Glenn Russ is married to Payam. Payam is the daughter of Dr. Arjang and Nasreen, who, by the way, are here this weekend, staying at the center. He spots me from across the room and he immediately recognizes, this guy's out of place, and walks over and introduces himself. And so that's that. And I sat down. I mean, like I'm sitting in the front row, like nobody sat down. I'm just waiting for a disciple of Mayor Baba to open up his mouth. And it was, oh, what a joy. So, again, well, call me an idiot savant if you want. I'm like, okay, I finally got tickets. I was able to get my partner to cover for me for a month for my business. I call Michael. I'm in California. He's still in Raleigh. I go, hey, what do I do? He goes, did you send the letter? I go, what letter? It's like, you got to send a letter before you go. I'm like, well, I'm leaving in 2 days. Can you tell me how to get there? I mean, like, I know I had to go to Bombay. He goes, yeah, okay. Well, listen, because it was still called Bombay then, now Mumbai. Get there, to get out, you get a rickshaw. Find a rickshaw driver. Have him tell you, take you to Victoria Station. Get a train to Pune. When you get the train to Pune, get off the train. Here's the name of a couple of hotels. Stay there. And then you're going to have to get a car to take you to Ahmednagar and then tell him. So he gives me the lowdown. I'm like, okay, say that again. Let me write that. Yeah, okay. So what was it? And so I go skiing in Vail at the Thanksgiving holiday, and I had made this plan that I would meet my best friends from high school, go skiing in Vail, ship my stuff back, and have my flight depart from Denver to Bombay. So it was, and there I am. And as everybody knows, you arrive 2 o'clock in the morning. It's madness. I mean, I don't know how many of you have been to the tomb then. Some of you I can see probably were there in the 70s, even wilder. But get to Victoria Station, got hustled to get a ticket, blah, 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 get to Pune. And so when I get there off the train to go to the hotel, rickshaw driver, which just gotten a new rickshaw, drops me off at the hotel. And again, idiot savant. I said, well, and he says, well, oh, you're on a you're on a spiritual pilgrimage, you know. So he says also he volunteers to take me on a tour of what he thinks are spiritual spots in Pune. He has no idea of who Baba is. I'm like, oh yeah, great. So he takes me here and there, and he picks up his cousin, and the three of us, he's rickshaw here and walking me there, and it's just a lovely time. And so I say to him, hey, I got to go to Mehrabad, which is right outside of Ahmednagar. I say, I got to get a car. You want to take me there in your rickshaw? And he looks at me and goes, Ahmednagar. And he sees where it is relative to Pune. And he goes, do you, sir, do you know how far that is? I'm like, yeah, I don't care. He goes, we'll take the whole day. And I said, yeah, sure, it'll be fun. He says, well, will you allow me to pick up my cousin to join me? Because I want to have somebody ride with me on the way back. And I remember distinctly he had just gotten a brand new one of those brass horns with the big rubber ball on the bottom of it. And so it was. I took a rickshaw to the tomb. To this day, people will say, if I happen to recount the story, like, oh, you're the guy. But this is really important because it relates to my first meeting with Erich. So I get there, and who can say what happened the first time I placed my head on Baba's tomb? What I do remember, however, is that it also so happened that at that meeting where Bao was giving a talk in Occidental College in California, aside from Glenn Russ greeting me and being kind to do so, I looked across the room and I saw Vanessa Stout, if any one of you know who Vanessa Stout is, and my heart stopped. And being a young man at the time in my early 30s, normally I was fearless. I would walk up to somebody, but I said, no, I'm not here for that. And I didn't say a word to her. I did go to a Baba meeting there after a Los Angeles Baba meeting right on the heels of that, because Bao was speaking again. I just was going to see him. And I saw her again, but I warned myself, don't even say a word. So just remember that little tidbit. Up the hill to the the other thing is, as I'm walking in the old Pilgrim Center to go to my room, I see a guy sitting at a desk in his room, but he's facing out through the screen. And I look and I see his face, and I remember him from Occidental College. I go, hey, and the meeting in LA, I go, hey, I know you. And it's Will David. And he says, oh, he's pretending that he knows me, but he doesn't remember me at all. I'm just certain that I know him. And he walked me up the hill for the first time and introduced me to Nanakar before when I walked out of the tomb, and said, this is Kevin. And of course, that magic, if any of you have experienced it, welcome home, kiss on one side of the cheek, kiss on the other. So down the hill I go, just in time for dinner to start, because I got there late to check in. And I walk through the two doors there, and I see this woman who literally stopped my heart. I even said to myself, oh my God, that's the woman I'm supposed to be with. But whatever I needed to do or be to get there, it's too late. That's, like I missed the window. And I walk literally, the first person I see I walk into is Vanessa. And I say, I know you. She goes, I don't know you. And I was so dumbfounded in this state of ecstasy with Bob. I go, yeah, sure. Don't you remember? It was Bal Kalchuri, Occidental College, right? This is a person I never said a word to. She thought I was nuts. She was quite right. Anyway, I asked her to marry me 4 days later, and she said yes. And we got married and stayed married for 20 years until we got divorced, and Baba gave us 3 beautiful boys as a result. So, and that's a really amazing story unto itself. I'm looking at the time here. After I encountered her, she was at the front door because she was walking out to go wash her hands in the sink right outside the door to the dining hall, if you all remember, who have ever been there. Then I see Glenn, and I go, "Hey, I know you." And I go, "Yeah, don't you remember Occidental?" I go, "I was wearing, I was the guy with with the suit on." He goes, "Oh yeah, I know you're the guy with the suit on." And that very night, they were due to give to do a skit in Mundley Hall for money. And they go, "Listen, you got to be in the skit." And so I went from just arriving that night to rehearsing on the same night of arrival for a skit, which we were going to do the very next day in Mundley Hall. So, of course, and that skit was hilarious to this day. I was talking to Glenn this Friday, just passed us a couple of days ago, and we were recounting how hilarious it was. Monty was laughing like crazy. Everybody was laughing. It was fun. So I'm sitting at my very first talk in Mundley Hall with Erich. Erich is there. Everybody knows he's sitting beneath the window and he's telling the story. And Divana is there. And after Erich had told some, things shortly thereafter, Divana says, "Erich, Kevin is here. His name is Kevin Connor." "Oh, yes. It's his very first visit, Erich." And he says, and Divana says, "It's very interesting, Erich. He came in a rickshaw from Pune." and so Erich says, "He what?" He says, "What? Tell me the story." So I proceed to start telling him the story, and I'm recounting stopping by the side of the road and having lunch and a kingfisher on the way and reading a book, blah, blah, blah. And he's laughing, and everyone in Mundley Hall is laughing their asses off. And then and so Erich is really enjoying the story. And I'm embellishing it, not embellishing it, but I'm just acting it up because I see he wants me to do that. Then he's enjoying it until he asks me a question. And he says to me, "How much did you pay the rickshaw driver?" I reply, "Oh, I only paid him 500 rupees. And if you want to see Erich going from a cheerful mood to a not cheerful mood, that was it." So I went from getting a kiss to a kick in a moment because he called me out pretty strongly in front of everybody that, you can't do that. You can't, you disturb the economy. That's too much money. You can't give. I'm like, "Yes, Erich, yes, yes, yes." And that first stay in India, I formed some of the deepest friendships I have ever since then, for the near 30 years since that time, Glenn being one of them. Glenn and I get together every Friday night when I have the overnight duty at the Gateway, and we talk, for 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever. And so I guess I could stop there, if the format is to tell most of your story and then stop for questions, or I could go on to sort of tell what my daily life is with Baba, which I don't even know how I'm so blessed. I mean, when Jeff asked me to write the little bio and I put it in there, for the 20-year, how did I wind up in Myrtle Beach? So I was married to Vanessa at that time. Jalal was 3.5, and Narayan was going on 5. Just angelic 2 boys. Couldn't have been happier. But we were in some hard times, either related to her dad and such. And we were living in Tahoe, California at the time. And so it was a very undesirable scenario. And I was running a business as well, a technology, small company. It's a small technology company, but we were doing all right. And Vanessa, turns out she's very, very, I guess intuitive is the word, but something a little bit more than that. And I had come to realize over time that when there was a certain sort of, sometimes she would have an awareness that I could distinctly tell, she was listening really closely to Baba. So one night we're in Tahoe and we're experiencing this sort of devastating conditions, if you will, just to frame it up. And at midnight, she says, come outside, you know, I want to take a walk and a talk with you. And we walked outside and we sat down on the ground and she says, we have to move to Myrtle Beach. And I go, well, okay, that sounds, you know, we need to be near the center and we need to raise the boys next to the center. And I said, okay, well, you know, let's try to figure it out. She goes, no, we need to go. And we left the next day. We took a portion of all of our worldly belongings, got a well, you know, one of these trailers that you from U-Haul that you connect to your car. We had a Jeep, Grand Cherokee, older one. That's significant because when we got here, I was getting an engine knocking, and I took it to the when we were driving through Vegas, it was 115 degrees, and the engine was knocking, and the engine was overheating. So we had taken brown sort of wrapping paper, you know, the shipping paper, and darked out all of the windows in the back and laid down a like a futon. And the boys were in the back, you know, almost naked, jumping around in there, sweating. And I'm running the heat as we're going over the Hoover Dam, putting the heat on so that the engine doesn't overheat in 115-degree weather in the first place. And just a bunch of near, just, I can't even describe. Somehow we just keep on tregging along. We get to Memphis, Tennessee on July 4th before 9/11. That's when we arrived. And we stop at a truck stop where they have showers and such, you know, for truckers. And Jalal slips and falls on it, splits his eye over his eye, bleeding, 5 stitches, hospital, still trying to get him Bob the Center. And when we finally do, I was here for maybe a week, and I can't really take the car in, you know, and it was knocking, but it was running. It's just had a tendency to overheat. The mechanic, when I come to find out about his findings, the first thing he does is he holds out his hand with a palm full of iron, you know, metal filings. He goes, I don't know how you drove this car a half a block, much less across the country. The engine is shot. These are all engine metal filings from the engine. I had my company was in. I had a little tiny office in Tahoe, but I had a staff of about 20 people in Boulder. My partner was running them. So I needed to put together a sales team immediately upon arrival. So I'm here no more. We rented a house, and no more than a week into it, I'm like, I got to lease some space, but I don't want to. And I'm saying to Baba, please don't show me a place to lease, because I'll happily work out of the house and manage things for a while, because this is just too much. And I had to look diligently for a lease to be responsible to Baba, and at the same time asking him, please don't find a place for me. I'm dropping off Vanessa and the 2 boys at the center, and I'm going to go back to our home that we rented to work the day. And what's happening? 17th Avenue South on the right-hand side. We were on 10th Avenue South in North Myrtle Beach. There's a sign in front of a building, and it's Truxell Chiropractic. I had it in my mind's eye. I go, well, Baba, if you're going to give me an office, it has to be like this. You know, one office, then a big open space for me to put desks for salespeople to call out, et cetera, et cetera. And I see it, and it says it's for lease. And I hadn't seen it before, but I'm like, okay, I'm obligated to look. I don't want to look. And I do look. And I go in, and it's as if Baba had put the image in my mind and then presented to me in the physical world identically. So right to back, I said I signed the lease that morning. And the next day, I'm dropping off Vanessa and the boys at the center again. And upon my departure, Jane Brown is at the gate. And so she opens up the gate. And, you know, because Vanessa grew up in a Baba family, so everybody knew Vanessa. So Jane says to me, oh, so happy that you and Vanessa are here, and the boys are so beautiful. You know, we don't have any young families. This is so wonderful, so happy. I really hope that you're going to stay. And I say, well, I certainly hope so. I just signed a 2-year lease on office space. He says, oh, that's wonderful. Where? And I said, it's on 17th Avenue South. It's in the Troxel Chiropractic building. She goes, oh, well, you do know that was the original Sheriar Press building where the books were printed. And I'm like, Baba has done that over and over and over again when, you know, we all know that everything, you know, neither a leaf falls or a wave rolls. That's not Baba's will. But there are many events, I'm sure, in your lives where Baba's fingerprints are all over it. And so it was with that. And so back to daily life with Baba, from the time that we got here, the July before 9/11, until we were divorced in 2014, we were at the center Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday without fail, with the boys. We were kind of like the mainstays of volleyball for a decade and a half. And to this day, I have a, business here in Myrtle Beach. I'm just shocked every day that Baba hasn't spit me out of Myrtle Beach, but he hasn't yet, by his grace. And so lunchtime for me is get in the car and go to Lagoon Cabin, hang out with Baba. And I just somehow miraculously, by God's and Baba's incredible grace, yesterday was Saturday. Saturday morning, Baba's house opens at 9 a.m. I'm usually there 4 minutes before 9. And Farshid and Marjan are the host. I walk in and I'm sitting, I'm kneeling at Baba's bed. And I'm the only person in Baba's bedroom. And no matter how many times it happens like that, I'm just like, if there's 8 billion people on a planet, Baba, and here I am, One time, and this story was recounted to me by Ray DiArgenio, who was there when it happened. Bao was visiting the center. By the way, the plan for raising Narayan and Jalal in the vicinity of the center so that the people who had met Baba who were still alive, who, as a matter of course, so many of them make their way through to the Meher Baba Center, and so it was, the boys had an opportunity to meet them and spend time with them. Bao took quite a liking to the both of them. So they did, they got to meet, so many of the people who are now gone to Baba, but there to hear the stories. And they were, very interested in it. But I left off on this last bit that I was going to say. What was I saying? About the, anyway.
You're saying Ray was there at the time.
Ray, yes, the Baba sister and Ray. Thank you very much. Thank you. Excellent cue. So Ray tells me the story. Bao is here. This is before I got here. Bao was visiting the center. And then, how do I say this without casting? Let's just say, I'm sure many of us have, on occasion, experienced some silly questions from our fellow brothers and sisters, Baba lovers, put to some of the gems of the Baba world, like Bao. So this person raises their hand, according to Ray, and says, Bao, really, is it really that big a deal, to come to the Baba Center here in Myrtle Beach? Baba's, and then the person's fool enough to quote Baba and says, Baba says that, I'm available to any man, anywhere, under any circumstance. If a man calls out from his heart, I am there. So does it really that make big a difference? Now, according to Ray, prior to this person who goes unnamed asking this question, Bao was in a very cheerful mood. He's just, who's next? Now, who has questions? Who has questions? And he's answering all these questions and such. And upon hearing that, Bao got dead serious. And according to Ray, Bao said, you have no idea. You have no idea. If even you put your foot where the avatar of the age placed his foot, billions, I tell you, billions, trillions of impressions are gone. And so he's just like emphatic about it. So with that as the backdrop to this extraordinary, I wake up in the morning, Baba's name is on my lips, and I'm like, wow, am I really still here? And so that line from Begin the Begin, which when I hear people curse the chance that was wasted, I know all too well what they mean. That rings in my mind, and I'm like, you know what? I don't really give a hoot, what my next call is. I can rationalize that everybody takes lunch, and I'm going to the lagoon, and I'm going right now, and there I am. So I guess I'll end or pause there. Jai Baba.
Oh, that was quite a story, Kevin. Enjoyed it. So I have one question, if I may. Your dream that you had of Baba, the two dreams that you had, was it before you went to Nagar or after that? Because you seem to, you quote Erich in there and you quote Mera in there, of course. So I was just curious, is that before you went to
Yes.
Baba's place?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so you had then just read about Erich, and how did you know?
Yeah, I had the advantage by that time for the second visit. Everyone turned to Kitab spent many a Saturday with Michael Kovic. So I had a lot of knowledge of the characters and the Mandali and who they were. And I had read God Speaks, and I had read a great deal of Discourses. But in the case of Michael, he used to have a Baba meeting on Sundays, but it was attended by 3 people. So I didn't have a wider exposure. So, but yes, I knew their names, and I understood who Mara was, and I understood the backstory of her, Baba keeping her from men and such.
I see. Well, definitely a chosen gem, that's for sure. So thank you for your story. And I open it up to anybody who has questions for Kevin. Please go ahead. Richard. Richard.
Well, I'm going to take this story one step further down the road. Kevin, I met you one time in 2013, but barely, as you were leaving the original kitchen with Vanessa and your 2 boys, and there was a wild man in the original kitchen throwing everything off the table and the shelves named Francis. I think he, 2.5, 3 maybe, I don't know. And I was just thrilled, and I talked to Vanessa, and I was because she's really striking, she was really striking. And I just asked her a couple of questions, but you guys had to leave, so you guys, left. But I showed up the next year in 2014, and I was in the original kitchen in the old patio ping pong area there. And all of a sudden there's Vanessa, and there's this big guy sitting next to her, and I'm thinking, he looks really friendly with Vanessa. I wonder what's going on. And so now that I've set the stage, that was Laurent.
Yep.
And anyway, so it was always a curiosity to me. So then next what happens is there's a wonderful young woman named Margie Connor. And she had a lot to do with when I first started coming to the Jeffs late night. I was fascinated by her, and I wondered who was this person. And then I started putting 4 and 6 together and getting 11. And so I kind of did all I could to investigate who's Vanessa and who's Kevin. And I didn't know anything about you. I'm really glad to hear this tonight. Gives me a great background. But the bottom line is, so I got fascinated with this thing. Well, so it turns out over time that it appears that your ex-wife Vanessa helped to sort of take on and or raise Margie, and then she had a union with your son so that she could take the last name and get away from her original father's legal problem. Well, with all that said, I just wanted to say that I was sort of shocked by all of it, and I was wondering about you, because that must have been a very difficult time in your life. But also at the same time, I kept following Vanessa and Laurent and Margie. And of course, now she's about to have a baby. And so I just thought I'd throw all that out at you and let you respond. But anyway,
Well,
I really,
what they say, if I want
I really enjoyed your family journey. You know, it's really quite a story.
Yes, my response to that is, there's an old saying that goes, if I wanted to salt my wounds, I'd bring my own shaker.
Well, I'm sorry, but the depth of the fascination for me came in when I found out that Vanessa had a great deal to do with helping out Margie. Because
Yes, that would be both of us. She lived at our house. The
yeah,
Connor house became the home of many a wayward teenager over the years that we were here. And we housed Margie for a couple of years. We housed Sophia for a year. We housed periodically short-term people here. Our house was definitely a flop house around the Sahavas period. We'd have, my God, I could lost count, 10, 12 teenagers flopping all over each other. And yes, I orchestrated a legal marriage of son Narayan's to Margie.
good for you. I think from what I know, she needed that very much.
So
Well,
can
thank
we
you.
ask a Bob question?
Yes.
Suvel, you have a question for Kevin?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Thanks, Kevin, for sharing your story. Just wondering if there's a quote that's always kind of stuck with you throughout your journey in Bible specifically,
Yes.
or something that I always kind of been a theme in your life. Thank you.
Yes. The quote, this is the story. This was given to me as a birthday present from Ray, who's really my dearest Baba friend. And in a birthday card that he gave to me let's see, around a decade ago. So the story goes that when Mara arrived to stay with Baba permanently, Baba gave her a quote from Kabir and told her to memorize it upon her arrival. This is a documented story. Mara arrives, she's going to stay with Baba for good. And one of the very first things that Baba did was give her a quote from Kabir and ordered her to memorize it. And the quote is, I'm just going to substitute the word Baba for God in the quote. Once and for all, Baba, I make the resolve. Everything is yours, Baba. Nothing is mine. This is my resolve. In me, there is nothing that is mine. What there is yours. Having made over to you what is yours, what concern have I with any of it? I'd say that every single morning for now, whatever, 10 or 11 or 12 years, along with my other, the prayers, which Janaki and I, Janaki Nicastro, have been engaged for 5.5 years. We're going to be getting married in March or April, whatever, spring of the upcoming year. But in addition to the 3 prayers, I have my own sort of prayers every morning, and that's one of them. And over the many years of recounting that, by the way, as a few years ago, I mentioned this quote to Jeff Wolverton, and he said, yes, Baba himself recited that quote on one of his visits to the West, to the Mayor Center here in the barn. So that over the years of saying it every single morning, very early on in reciting it in my morning prayers, that part where it says, in me there is nothing that is mine. Quickly came the question, well, what's in me? Nothing but sanskars. Baba says it right there, and God speaks, right? We are nothing but the consolidated mold of impressions of our most last lifetime. So it became so clear that the so-called me in this lifetime was this massive, mucky, tangled sanskars. That's what's in me. And so what's in me is yours, not mine. Having made over to you what is yours, meaning the whole mess of my sanskaric journey that has to be cleared up. Having made it over to you, what concern have I with any of it?
Kevin, I wanted to ask you, so how do you remember Baba during the day?
Well, I start off my morning with, remembering him, and I have a bunch of prayers that I say to him. So I get the engine going, and then I silently repeat. Sometimes if I get the engine going where I'm linking my Baba's name to my heartbeat or linking Baba's name to my breath, that'll go. But my work entails very, very concentrated mental focus all day long. So then Mani, sort of gave us a break and said, you don't have to worry about repeating his name constantly. Even Baba said, if you're completely focused in the work that you're doing, you are remembering me. But before you start something and after you finish something, say, this is Baba doing this, and then that's Baba doing that. But that wasn't satisfactory for me because I didn't have the wherewithal to make that a non-stop discipline. So I took advantage of technology and found a
Yes.
program that sets off a 10-second melodic. I change it periodically from a melodic one. The one I've got right now does it's a female's voice of going 10, 9, 8. So no matter if I'm in a business meeting or wherever I am, it goes off every 15 minutes. And for 10 seconds, every 15 minutes, I go deep.
Oh, that's clever. That's
And-
often, though. That's really often.
Yes.
15 minutes. That's not 4 times a day. That's every 15 minutes. Wow.
Yeah.
You must be very holy.
I'm not. Yeah, I got a lot of holes in my clothes, but
Vijay, you have a question?
Mhm.
Hey, Vijay.
Hi, Martha, Jai Baba. Hi, go ahead. Everyone,
Hi,
Jai
Jai.
Baba.
Jai
I'm
Baba.
Vijay from Pune. Hi, Kevin. I just means I have to listen it once again on YouTube video. But you mentioned about Michael Cowes. And Michael Cowes, I was his roommate in 85 at Chicago.
oh, that's fantastic. He's a
Gurdeep and I have no question, but just I want to know he's somewhere in Raleigh, and where is he actually?
He's still in Raleigh, and as you well know, he's a Segovia level of mastery in classical guitar.
I know all
And
his
he's
music and
still playing and still has students. And he married a woman named Edna, who I introduced him to when I was there at the time. And I spoke
you
to
mean
him
in Chicago? Sorry, sorry to interrupt you. Is it in Chicago or
No,
in
he's
Raleigh?
lived in Raleigh for ever since I've known him. So for at least
Okay.
30 years, he's been in Raleigh.
Okay.
Yeah, he's one of a kind. I love him. I don't know, but I don't know Bob will ever more well read than Michael. And
Yeah.
if you ever, I mean, who knows? But when I say Segovia level classical guitarist, I am not exaggerating. He is a master of the classical guitar.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, actually, Raleigh, now I'm from Pune. I will be coming to US, so like to see him in Raleigh.
Will you be
Myrtle Beach, I'm going to Myrtle Beach. So,
Oh, well, then I'll see you in Myrtle Beach, God willing.
okay, yeah, please, if you see him, tell him that like to meet him. Yeah.
Okay, I will. I haven't spoken to him in a few months, but I'll reach out to him when I speak to him next on the phone. I'll let him know that I met you on the Zoom and that you.
Yeah.
When are you
Vijay.
coming?
Yeah.
When are you coming to the States?
Vijay.
Yes, I know. When are you coming to the States?
It's I think next 10 days. I will be there in Texas for
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah, in Houston with
Okay,
my
I'll reach
son.
out. I'll reach out
Yeah.
to him in the next couple of days. Excuse me. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
let him know that. So you're going to Texas, and then you're coming here then to Myrtle Beach.
To Myrtle Beach. Myrtle Beach, yeah.
All right, well, I'll let them know that you're going to be. Gauri, you have my contact information. Just you
Yeah.
can with BJ or
Yeah.
I don't know. Can you use chat here?
You can
Yeah, I'm putting my phone number in here.
Yeah, that's right.
please. Yeah.
So if I get a hold of him, then I'll
Oh yeah.
reciprocate. I'll call anyway. Yeah, great. Yeah, you gave me an excuse to call him. Thank you.
Jai Baba.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for Kevin? No one? Mhm. All right. Well, I think if we've come to the end of our session tonight, does anybody have a final quote to share with us before we end?
I just opened up the chat and it seems to be Tony Paterniti
Oh, Richard has his hand up. Okay, and
Yes.
Tony.
asks the question, what happened with Bauji?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. When you were in the front row in your suit. The next thing you know, we were in India. So I'm wondering, what did you react to? Did you hear what did Bao speak? Did you make connection with him there?
Oh yeah. I didn't really talk to him. I think Glenn introduced me to him, but it was not a memorable moment per se. But listening to him talk, I was enwrapped. There's the only thing I can say. I mean, it's just every word that started with "then Baba said" and "then Baba did that" and Baba this, and I'm like, oh my God, you know. And I just felt so much more close to him. I will say one thing. I mentioned that because Bao made his way every single year through to the Myrtle Beach Center until he stopped. So the boys met and spent time with Bao every single year, and Bao took quite a liking in Narayan and Jalal. And there's a comic story where, so they both boys. In fact, Narayan made it to the tomb when he was 5 months old. We brought him to India. Then we brought him again when he was 15 months old. And then Jalal didn't make it until he was 7. So all of them also then hung out with Bao in India. And so we get this, each one of them gets a personal letter from Bao when they're like 7, maybe like 7.5, Jalal, and Narayan 8.5, 9, from Bao. And the gist of the letter to each one of them is, what's wrong with you? What kind of a friend are you? Have you no mercy? I'm sitting just waiting for Baba to take me. All I want to do is go to him, but I can't go because you promised you were coming back and you haven't come back yet. And I can't go to Baba until you come back. And so I know you are all so fit and everyone, you're so have this and that, and you with your muscles and all this going on, but still have you no respect? Have you no care for me whatsoever? I mean, it's just, and with each one was different, but the same theme.
Cute, sweet.
Richard, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I didn't really intend to throw salt in the wounds, but I really respect you, Kevin, out of all these stories, because I was always really curious, and also saddened, because I was there in 13 and asked Vanessa her story. So she told me the whole story of how you asked her to marry in India, it was quite a story. And then later, of course, I ran right into, what was going on. But Francis seems to have turned out really cool. Is he really as cool a head as he looks? Some of those pictures.
Yeah.
Is he?
All in a bag of chips. He's amazing. All three of them are distinctly different. Narayan, for example, of all the people I've ever met in my 64 years on the planet, I have never met a human being, and now he's 28 years old, who is consistently happy. And to illustrate, when he was like, I don't know, 10 or 11, he figured out how to get a Gmail email account. And his email address, which he still has to this very day, is iamalwaysfantastic@gmail.com.
How's it?
That's great.
And Paul, on the other hand, is very fiery. And I recall one day in Dilruba when Bao was here, when Bao would be here, there would be also one day for the young people to gather. I was a dad and they were small, so I could also be there. And then we got in the habit. First of all, the reason his name is Jalal is because we wanted to name him after Jalaluddin Nuruddin, but we didn't want to yoke him with an onerous first name. My name is Jalaluddin, right? So his real name is Jalal, first name, middle name, Uddin, Connor, which is kind of funny in the first place. But we wound up, you know, parents wind up just, so we used to call him, come here, Jalali. Jalali, Jalali, come here. And one day in Dilruba, Bao said, yes. And now Bao's talking to me. And he goes, yes, I see. You call him Jalali. You are right to call him Jalali. He's Jalali. He is like a Jalali must. He's fiery. Fiery he is. That's, you know, he went on and Bao went on. And lo and behold, unbeknownst to us, you know, we were, I don't know if we were painting him with that brush or we were just having insight accidentally to his karmic nature, but brilliant and very fiery. And Francis, of course, you know, we didn't know if he was going to live the first week of his life. He came in through the womb in intensive care. He spent the first 3 weeks of his life in an incubator because he was born with bacterial meningitis and rushed off to the Florence hospital. And but yes, the answer to your question is he's beyond vibrant, beyond loving, kind, intelligent, creative, hilarious, intuitive. They're all bothered. I was sitting in Merzad Garden next to Arnavas, and Arnavas had Narayan, for example. He was 5 months old, and Narayan was in Arnavas's lap, and she was just, you know, bouncing him gently. I'm sitting next to Arnavas. We're in Merzad Garden, and for anyone who's ever met Arnavas, I mean, it's just my experience. It just oozed elegance and you know, subtlety and all that. And she just kind of quietly says to me as she looks at Narayan, who's on her lap, says, "Oh yes, he was just here." And then went on to the next sentence, like, you know, like it was nobody, like she didn't say anything at all. And I don't know. I mean, I think for all of us, I don't know, but I would suspect that for most of us, we could talk for hours and days on end of the blessings every single day. That one of my prayers in the morning is, you know, as Baba has given us either permission or instructions in discourses to create the provisional ego. So every single morning, and I say, Baba, I surrender it as you, not I, thinking and speaking and acting and feeling through me today. They're your thoughts, your words, your actions, and your feelings. And I start off that way. And then I don't know, you know, it's my imagination because I'm still in imagination, but my imagination is that Baba basically talks to me all day long. You know? My Baba is a Brooklyn Baba, by the way. When Baba talks to me, it's usually like he's looking at me, he's going like, "What's up with you?" I mean, what do you think? You know, Baba will give me an inner insight about something, and I'll go, "Oh wow," and there'll be Baba going, "Duh."
That's wonderful. Great. Anyone else have any questions before we close? It's getting late and we should let Kevin go rest.
Well, this has been a joy. I guess anytime to hear myself tell tell out loud how Baba is with me. I can't ever put it into words, the vitality and the consistency of his presence in my life every day. And I'm grateful and happy that Baba asked me to join you tonight and share his life through me. So thanks again. And Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
We thank you very much, Kevin. Thank you for joining us. We love to relive your story again with you. So, Jai Baba. All
Jai
right. Look forward to next week, folks. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, go ahead.